Alright. Hey guys, how's it going? Zoo here. Just got back to my computer. Saw that the scouting ground stuff went up. Figured put together a couple notes and, give my thoughts, maybe hear everyone else's thoughts, see what's going on. Um, I've worked with like a majority of these players before, some for extended periods of time, some for short periods of time. But I volunteer a lot in the amateur scene, and I keep in contact with a lot of these players and kind of keep an eye on them. So I feel like I have a pretty good idea as to like how scouting grounds will play out. But I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts here on the right. So for team strength rating overall, I have Ocean, Infernal, Cloud, and Mountain in that order. Quick reasons being I think Ocean has the most experience, and I also think Ocean has the most competitive knowledge out of the four teams. I think Infernal has the most firepower um, on their team. I think Cloud has the most potential to upset and surprise people, and I think Mountain has a lot of wild cards, or too many wild cards. Now for player rating, I would put Jenkins at top, then Misty, then Atheris or Flares, and Fake God. Reasons being, I think Jenkins has like the most prominent professional experience. You know, Flares has played LCS before, but it hasn't been for a few years. So I think Thomas, he's a very young player. He has expanded his champ pool a lot, has gained a lot of competitive experience, is doing very well in amateur. So I think he has potential to really step up. I think Misty is an overall pretty impressive player, shows a lot of resilience. Um, has a pretty wide champ pool. I've seen him kind of play supportive when top lane Shen was meta, but then also see him like play the Fiora, play the carry. Kind of interested to see what role he takes there. And then Flair's kind of the same thing. He has played tanks, he has played utility, but he's not nearly as consistent as Misty. So I want to see if that consistency shows up here at Scouting Grounds. And then Fake God, I don't know too much about him, so I won't really say much, but I'm excited to see him play. For jungle, I have Metaphor, and I have him rated pretty highly over the other three. But then I Panda, Fragus, Kenji. Reasons being, I think Metaphor has the most competitive experience. I think he's also has the best champ pool. I think he has also worked with other players that are smart about the game. Worked with me a bit at MLGB. So we kind of hit it off a lot in terms of like teaching him how to play competitively. And I think Panda he's played with his mid before in Five Fire and amateur, so I think he has potential to pop off, but I also think it's a bit inconsistent. I've seen him hard carry amateur games competitively, and I've seen him legitimately like PayPal run it down mid competitively as well. So I kind of see how both those play out. And then Fragus, I think Fragus and Kenji both have potential upside. Haven't really seen them do anything competitively, so I don't really want to say much. Fragus does have an interesting champ pool, so maybe that kind of plays into things. For mid lane, I think Strumpus is the strongest, then Julian, then Five Fire and Saligo. I was a bit conflicted, and I was thinking about putting Five Fire equal to Saligo, but I ended up going with Five Fire being stronger than Saligo, just because I've seen Saligo kind of at the same level of high challenger play for the past 2-3 years, and haven't really seen him break through yet. So maybe this year he breaks through, but Five Fire definitely has the worst map awareness out of the four, but he also role swapped to mid and was able to play mid competitively in a relatively quick fashion. So whenever someone's able to pick up a role and like play it pretty well and like kind of climb like that, um, it's a pretty underrated trait when you're looking at professional players. So I feel like he has potential to do well. And Julian is somebody whom has kind of been around for a bit, second scouting grounds. Um, the thing that's holding Julian back from this top spot is that he doesn't put on the carry pants when he needs to at times. He's a bit more of like a utility player. Lissandra, Oriana, Galio, etc., etc., Talia. Um, at times, I haven't really seen him pick up too much of like the Aurelia, the Akali, asking for resources. Usually, when it's him asking for resources, it's on comfort champions like Syndra. And speaking from personal experience, he's a bit slow in adapting to champ pools, so maybe that's a problem throughout the week. But he definitely has really strong game sense, and he has like a strong sense of vision control as well. So kind of look for him to play the map correctly, but I want to see if that edge shows up for him And then Strumpus, I think, is just Julian with that edge. He can first pick that Akali. He can ask his team for resources. He can shot call. He knows where to put vision. So I think they're relatively close, but give Strumpus that edge. And then for 80 carry, I have Tack first, then Jurassic. I have Jurassic equal or better than Prismal, and then Sophis Sage in the last spot. For Sophis, I don't really know anything about him, so I don't want to say anything. Again, excited to see him. Prismal is somebody who is incredibly mechanically gifted and somebody who's mechanically very good. Specifically, a lot of his like hard carry play is really great. So kind of see if that shows up. I just haven't really seen him. I saw him last year at Scouting Grounds and he was pretty good. So kind of see if he maintained that. Jurassic has pro play with GGS, another one of my former guys, along with Jenkins to be at Scouting Grounds. But I think Clarence is an amazing teammate. He has mental of steel. Um, he is incredibly supportive of his teammates, his coach. He's always willing to help. He has very good communication. Um, so those things like make him an excellent player to fit in the cog of a machine. I think some of his downsides are his champ pool is relatively small. He adjusts to champions pretty slowly, and I think sometimes like his game awareness or his map knowledge is not nearly as strong as he thinks it is. But he's been practicing a lot, so maybe he really shows up and impresses a lot of people. But I think he's quite good. And then Tactical, I think, is the best. He is the youngest, I believe, out of the four. Also shows the most promise. He's incredibly mechanically good. Has good game knowledge. I've been working with Tac now for over a year and kind of seen him when he was like 16, turning 17, 18. And I just think he has a lot of promise. Tac does have like when he would scrim with me, we would call it his like one play of the game or his tack moment where his brain would just randomly turn off for like 15, 20 seconds at a time. And whether it's just getting caught or going to the wrong lane or something, it just kind of happens. But I think as he gets around the game a bit more and really plays with people who punish his mistakes more, I think he'll really shape it up to be a solid academy player. And then for support, uh, Duo King definitely the best. I have him rated pretty highly, same as Metaphor, over the other three. Winter being second, Diamond being three, and Call-In being fourth. Diamond and Call-In, I actually really don't have any information on. I've seen Diamond play in some of the tournaments that, like around, and I've seen him like in High Challenger, so I don't know anything about those two competitively. Winter, with the split of competitive play with Optic Academy, has been playing with Jurassic a lot in amateur recently. This is Winter's third time now at Scouting Grounds. I think Winter can be a talented player at times, but I think he's a bit inconsistent. So I kind of want to see if that inconsistency, especially in smaller mistakes, shows up for the Scouting Grounds. If it doesn't, then I think he'll get picked up. And I think Duo King is just by far the best support. Has amazing mechanics. Like honestly, some of the best mechanics I've seen in North America. Um, and he has good game sense in terms of macro and in terms of vision control. So I think his vision control will be quite good, and his team fighting is very good. So I think him with tactical, they'll be the strongest bot lane for sure. Kind of see how that plays out. I will say the weak point of him is definitely his mental and his communication. He's very lackluster in his comms. So fortunately, he's with Strumpus and Tactical, who are both very vocal. But we'll kind of see how that plays out. And a couple points just to look for in these teams. For Mountain, I guess we'll just run down the list. Look for Prismo to hard carry this team for sure. This team is definitely the least experienced, so I think Prismo will have to kind of put the team on his back a few times and 1v9 a bit to kind of make this team work. I think that Saligo also will have potential to really pop off, though. I think that 1v9 responsibility will kind of be uh, traded back and forth between Prismal and Saligo. So we'll see how that plays out. And their 2v2 mid seems to be the least experienced out of the four teams. So maybe like there's some champ pool advantages that they bring out and some interesting strategies that they bring to the 2v2. But I'm interested to see how this 2v2 plays against somebody like Metaphor Julian 2v2. Or while Obese Panda and Firefire are not the strongest players individually, they have played together for a while, so maybe that brings them an advantage as well. For Team Ocean, look to see where the carry responsibility is being delegated. When you have this much experience on the team, 4 out of the 5 players having some sort of like semi-pro or professional experience, um, everyone's going to want to look good. Everyone's going to want to put on their carry pants, and everyone's going to want like counterpick resources. They're going to want to be the strong side of the map, play towards their lane, break their first turret. Especially bot lane. Jurassic somebody is very adamant about breaking bot turret first. Um, and Julian somebody who's adamant about playing away from mid turret first and impacting a side lane. So we'll kind of see how they diversify their carry potential. Not everyone's going to be able to get counterpick, and sometimes some of these players don't do well when they don't get counterpick. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. Look to see for this team who is willingly blind picking for their team. And that'll be a really good sign for a lot of these players. And then the opposite for Julian. If Julian is stepping up and calling for that first pick, he's calling for those resources. With the nerfs to Akali, maybe Akali isn't first pick viable, but let's see if Julian asks for the priority in the draft, has Metaphor play around his lane. They try to break mid turret, maybe off a 4-man roam with a tank play top, for instance. We'll kind of see what happens. Look for these players to step out of their shell, and that'll be the most promising thing with them. For Cloud, look for for Ocean, jungle, mid, and AD carry have all played for me for at some period of time, whether professionally or semi-pro. So they were kind of all taught the same fundamentals. Look for them to have really good like lane control and like lane assignments. I think that'll be like some of their like really strong aspects. Maybe their vision control as well. For Team Cloud, look for Panda to play mostly around mid lane. Like I said, I've said it a few times now, they're previous teammates in Amateur, but that won't guarantee them their success. I still think they're a relatively average 2v2 because of their consistency. Their biggest factor is in deciding how their 2v2 works out is how Firefire plays without his jungler and with his mini-map. His champ pool has gotten a lot better recently, but his map awareness at times is horrendous. So kind of see how he plays when his jungler is focusing another lane, and kind of see what they do with their lead if he focuses around 2v2 or if they even get a lead in the 2v2 to begin with. The biggest carry potential on this team is Jenkins, and I feel a bit bad for Jenkins because if he was placed maybe on Ocean or Infernal, you get a better look as to how much he actually improved. But I think Jenkins is going to have to put on his carry pants here. And where the interesting thing for this team is in Scouting Grounds is Winter being teammates with Jurassic and Amateur. They play heavily around bot lane, and they play really aggressive 2v2. Lots of Lucian Braum, Thresh, like Xayah Thresh lanes. Lots of really aggressive picks. Winter is a very aggressive support. Rakan, Braum, Thresh, Alistair mostly. And look to see him want to play aggressively, but he should be looking to play aggressively topside. So what I would look for this Team Cloud team to do is to use their 2v2 experience to free up Firefire and eliminate the RNG of Firefire playing poorly around his map awareness mid, free him up to either free up Winter so that they can roam together, or to have them go topside of the map and impact Jenkins lane. I think if Team Cloud 2v2s and then uses that advantage to play away from mid lane, so Winter either comes off reset and roams top, or their mid 2v2 comes up in 3-mans, or they 4-man top, or they give counter picks to top lane, I think that they can surprise a lot of people. But they should be using the aggression and the synergy that they have to be impacting top lane, for sure. And then Team Infernal definitely has the strongest mid AD support, like we were saying. Now, this team is the one that I'm most excited for personally, because they have the most potential to play like the most diverse styles in Scouting Grounds. And what I mean by that, it's like every team so far has seemed to have like a pretty singular win condition, but I think that Infernal has a chance to play multiple different ways successfully. And I think a big person in that, or two big people in that, are Tactical and Stumpy. Both of them have put on the carry pants for their teams in the past, but they've also put on the utility pants for their teams in the past. Tactical was one of the big people to pick up Swain, um, played a lot of mages, and he has also played a lot of utility like the Ash Varus. Um, he's used to at times being played away from, and he's also used to being played towards. So kind of see him look to ask for resources, but then if Stumpy, who is similar to Tack in his diversification, look for Stumpy to also play some low eco and impact bot lane, but then also have him call for resources, maybe red side counterpick in the solo lane on 5 pick, and then have Duo King free up and move into his lane. And with all of this put together, Sir Kenji seems to be a relatively impressionable jungler. He role swapped to jungle, so he's not as, I wouldn't say he's as knowledgeable as Metaphor or Froggus or Panda. So look to have him follow his lanes around a bit more. His lanes are very vocal in what they want. All three of his lanes are very experienced. So whenever you're doing that and you have two people on each side of the map that are willing to play both strong side and weak side, then the jungler is going to kind of like play towards whatever side is the strong side. And they have potential to play like a very aggressive bot side focus, very aggressive top side focus. They can play through a like a 4-1 or a 1-3-1 pretty effectively. So I want to see they how they diversify their play a bit. And then last point here is look to see how quickly their games close out. Strumpist is somebody who from GGEA learned how to play a pretty slow game, and then Tactical also plays a pretty slow game as well. Not sure about the rest. Duo King is somebody who likes to play more mages, so likes to scale a bit more, and specifically like Sona and stuff like that. So look to see how quickly they close their games out. I think their games may take a bit longer than they should because these are players that really like to collect side lanes and won't always necessarily pull the trigger at the first opportunity that shows up or the first best opportunity that shows up. So they'll definitely get leads, but then look to see how quickly they close those games out. So those just like overall thoughts. Like I said, I think everyone has potential to really step up. The biggest thing to take away from Scouting Grounds is that even though there's a strength rating, player rating, what teams to look for, who could be the best, who could be the worst, none of that really matters because from a coach's perspective, I want all 20 of these players to be successful because like what's the point? If we want players to do poorly here, there's no point. We should be rooting for all 20 of these players to be successful. And there's always going to be a winner and a loser, but we should all root for the success of all 20 of these players. So let me know what thoughts you have. I'd love to discuss with you and kind of let's chat.